Hi guys! Welcome to my channel. My name is Maika and I'm a recent graduate from Queen Mary, University of London, and I'm here to talk about my experience with the UKCAT. So, I actually just took my UKCAT today and I've got my results here. In verbal reasoning, I got 630. In decision making, it was 630 as well. In quantitative reasoning, I scored 730, which is my highest score of the 4 subtests. In abstract reasoning, I got 690, which gave me a total of 2,680 points. I don't know what this is like scored in. And I got band 1 in my situational judgment. A lot of people have suggested that you spend 4 weeks preparing. First 2 weeks looking at questions and answering those, getting used to the question styles as opposed to like timing. In the second half of the 4-week period, introduce timing so that you can get used to the time pressure, because I made a mistake in my revision before where I was just practicing every single night without the time pressure, and I was like, yeah, this is fine, you know, it's like, why do people struggle with this? And then I realized that it's not the actual questions that are difficult, it's the fact that you have to do them in such a small amount of time that's what you need to practice. It's not doing it, it's like the speed you have to do it, and that's what the UKCAT is all about. Make sure as well that even if you start revising, say 4 weeks beforehand, actually give yourself time to study. It's kind of what I didn't do because I was working during the summer and I thought I would always have the time to just like, you know, only 2 hours here and there, I can do that every day. So I'd work pretty late shifts, and then when I came home, I would be too tired. So say a month in advance at least, just give yourself time, set aside the time to study, and make sure you try and stick to it as much as you can. Make sure you practice timed questions and do the mocks closer to your exam day so that you don't waste them like in weeks before when really you need them for your exam. For VR, that's more to do with reading quickly and extracting information from a huge passage of text. Just make sure you're reading a lot. I was reading some books on my Kindle, newspapers, or whenever you can access a paper, just try and skim it so that you can, you know, like summarize it in your head and just try and understand what it's talking about. If you can, read some scientific articles, because I think that really helps with just getting used to terminology that you're not familiar with, but still trying to understand what it's trying to say as a whole. For decision making, I didn't really do anything special to prepare for that. I would do it every time I did a mock exam, but I never focused specifically on it. The only type of question I found really hard was the shape equations. I would always guess those because I didn't really understand how to do them. But last night I actually googled what the strategies are to work out the answer for the shape questions, and a lot of people just replace the shapes with algebra and then you kind of just do the equation, and I was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense.
What an idiot.
But I didn't do that, so I looked at how it was done, but it only ever came up like once or twice every time I did a mock, that I wasn't too worried about it. And today in my actual exam, it didn't even come up, so I'm kind of glad I didn't spend too long focusing on it. But yeah. For QR, this is actually my worst section. I'm really bad at quick maths, and I scored 730 somehow. Yep, it was definitely 730. But little spoiler is that I actually guessed a lot of my answers. If I didn't know the answer, I would guess C and flag it and then move on, and I would kind of go through the questions and do the ones that were shorter first. So if there was like a lot of text, then I'd be like, okay, maybe not, and I'll kind of skim the question just to see like maybe it's a really simple question, and if there were like multiple sentences or multiple steps, I would honestly just guess it and move on and then just come back to it. And that's actually what I did for the exam, because I read, so like every single question in the UKCAT is worth the same amount of marks. So it's not like in GCSE where a longer question is 5 marks and a short question is 1 mark. Like a 1 mark equivalent, the equivalent of a 1 mark question in the UKCAT is worth the same amount as like a 5 mark question in GCSE. Why would you spend more time gaining the same amount of marks that you could somewhere else? That was explained really badly. if say you have 2 GCSE questions, and in GCSE, one of them is 5 marks and one of them is 1 mark. So you're expected to spend 5 marks on the one that is, 5 minutes on the one that is 5 marks and 1 minute on the one that is 1 mark. But in the UKCAT, these questions are worth the same. They are both equally worth 1 mark each. So it just makes more sense to go through all the 1 mark quicker questions first, because you can do more of them in a smaller amount of time, and then these ones take longer to do. So I would just come back to those, and honestly, if you spend more than like a minute on it, you may as well just guess, because the time, any more time that you spend on it is time that you're losing for other questions, and you have a 1 in 5th chance of getting it, of guessing it right anyway, so you may as well guess. And that's exactly what I did. I honestly guessed, I think, half of the whole section, maybe like a third, and I tried to answer like a third, and then the other third was like, oh, I tried to answer it but I didn't really get the answer I was, you know, hoping for. Like, my answer didn't match one of the options, and I was just like, whatever, I'm just gonna guess C. And yeah, I got 730. So I'm really sorry to people who thought I was gonna give some amazing, like, this is how I scored above 700 in QR. It was just me guessing, and I think I was just lucky. What I was mainly worried about in QR was the calculator. So I've been using Medify to study, and on Medify the calculator can be cleared using backspace. And then in my revision I did 1 mock that wasn't on Medify, just because I wanted to make sure that Medify wasn't preparing me in a way that wasn't very accurate to the UKCAT. So I then took a mock on the actual UKCAT website, and I used the calculator, and on the website the calculator does not clear when you press backspace. It doesn't clear when you press delete. It basically, the only way to clear it is to click the on button with your mouse, which is really time consuming because you're obviously using your fingers on the number pad on the right, and then like to clear it you have to go off the number pad, find the mouse, use the mouse, and then go back to the number pad, and it was just really long. So I was really worried that that was going to happen today, but nope, it's fine. So the format of Medify is like very, very similar to the UKCAT, like basically the same. With abstract reasoning, I actually kind of like this section. In my revision it was one of my weaker sections, but I do kind of enjoy it. What I found with abstract reasoning was to do as many of the questions as you can. With AR, the more you do questions, the more patterns you'll be exposed to, and then like the bigger your pattern bank in your head will be. I highly recommend just doing loads and loads of abstract reasoning questions. There's a mnemonic that you can use, which is SCANS. That stands for shape, and then color, and then angle / arrangement, and then N is number, and the last S is symmetry. For the situational judgment, I actually didn't read the good clinical practice document by GMC. I couldn't really find it. Maybe I wasn't looking in the right place, but I couldn't find like a PDF or anything. So all I actually did was do loads of questions, and I didn't even really focus on it. I kind of just did it because I was doing mocks, and then it was always the last section. I was like, yeah, whatever. But I think it helped that I read 2 books written by doctors on my Kindle, because that just gave me like an overview of how they act in situations. I didn't actually read them for the purpose of improving my SJT score. I just read them because I wanted to read them, but I think that's why my SJT score was actually quite good. 1, make sure you relax, because if you panic, your brain freezes. You'll waste time just freaking out. Don't think about how each section is gonna affect the next section. Don't think about anything like, oh, but if my score's bad, I'm not gonna get into med school. Just don't think about it. Approach each section like a new section, and I always use the minute in between just to take a breather, like a reset moment, just to get in the mindset of the new section, and, you know, just disregard however well I think I did in the previous section. Number 2, don't look at the clock too much, because if you look at it too much, you kind of obsess over it. My main marker was I should be halfway through the questions by the time I'm halfway through my time. And if I didn't reach that, I'll try and speed up a little bit, and always leave time at the end to make sure you have not missed any questions. I think that's really, really important. Never leave a question blank, ever. Just don't do it, because even if you guess, you have a 1 in 5 chance of getting it right. Sometimes a 1 in 4. Yeah. At the end of each section, you have that summary screen. I would always press review incomplete first, just to make sure that I didn't leave any blank. And if I did, I would just answer those, and then I would review flagged. So those are the questions that I would be stuck on, or I would answer but I wasn't sure, and if I had time at the end, I'd go back and check on them. Again, with the time in between the sections, make use of the minute. While I was composing myself every minute, depending on the section, I would maybe write some stuff down on my whiteboard notepad thing. For QR, I wrote down formulas that I might forget. The area of a circle, circumference of a circle, DST triangle. For abstract reasoning, I wrote down the scanned mnemonic as like a safety net in case I forgot or something, and I just had it there just to be extra safe. The day before your exam, I really strongly do not recommend that you cram, because it's very physically exhausting to do the UKCAT, and if you cram the day before, you'll just be too tired to do it the next day. In my revision, I did one mock and I did really bad in the mock, so then the next day I studied for like 8 hours straight, and that whole day I scored really badly just because I was too tired to answer any of the questions. Like, my brain wasn't really working and it just made me feel worse about myself. So I really don't recommend cramming. I think the best way to study for the UKCAT is just to spend a couple of hours each day, and as soon as you feel kind of tired or that you're not doing your best anymore, then just stop, because it's literally like wasted time. I didn't do any questions this morning because I spoke to my friend and she said, oh, if you do a question and you get it wrong, it'll just like dishearten you. And I was like, yeah, that's so true. So I actually chose not to do any questions the actual day of my exam, and instead I just did some quick maths on my phone, and then I read on my newspaper app. I used Medify, and I did pay for a subscription. The reason I use Mattify is because I wanted a resource that would record my progress, because if it doesn't, I just don't have motivation to do it. With Medify, it gives you a very personal advice, and it tells you where you score the lowest in, and it will compare all of your answers to the most popular answer. So even if you get the answer wrong, if you know that most people picked it, then you don't feel so bad, because you're like, okay, it was like an easy mistake. I think it was like, was it £30? I want to say it was £30 for a month subscription, like a month's access, which I had to extend for £15 because I actually rescheduled my exam. Which leads me on to the next question of, when should you do your exam? So I think the best time to do the UKCAT is during the summer holidays. I did mine like the end of August, so today is the 22nd of August. I had originally planned to do it on the 8th of August. And the reason I picked that date was because I wanted to get it over with. I figured if I schedule it for sooner, I'll start revision sooner. And then what I realized was I had graduation the week before, so during that whole week I didn't revise at all. And then it came to like, you know, nearer that time, and I was like, wow, I'm really not ready for this exam. Like, why am I doing it now when I can do it later? So I rescheduled it to the 22nd, and I made sure that the time wasn't too early because I wanted to give myself the opportunity to like wake up in the morning. So yeah, I picked 12:15 because I knew that I could wake up early but not too early, and I'd have the time to just like get up and just, you know, relax myself and then go to my test center, not have to rush. One, it was on my computer, and two, it would give me like a result right away, and I didn't have to calculate what I got. It would just give me the score, and I could see where I went wrong, and more importantly, actually, you can reflect, and it tells you why all the other answers are wrong. So I highly recommend Medify. Like, I think it's absolutely great, and I used it for all my revision this year because it was an online resource, which meant that you could get used to the feeling of doing tests online using, you know, the desktop and a keyboard. I do recommend that you use a computer and not a laptop. just because on a computer you have the number pad on the right side and you've got a mouse, but on a laptop a lot of the time you only have like a trackpad, and then for my laptop my numbers are only the ones in the row. That wouldn't have been good practice for the math section. So when I was revising the math section, I always made sure to do it on a desktop and then make full use of the number pad. So Medify is also great because it shows you a calendar and how many questions you did each day. If you skip a day, the block in the calendar is blank, but if you do questions, it's green. It's so easy to keep track of how much you've done, and you can choose like how many questions you want to do. So if you have a lot of time that day, you can do a whole 40 questions worth, or you can just do like a set of 10 questions or a set of 20, and it will adjust the time for each set or for each number of questions so that you have the same time pressure, but it's like a different length in case you don't have, you know, all the time in the world to be doing like full sections, and it's just like ah. The first time I did my UKCAT, I only used the paper book version, and I got to the test center and I was on a computer and I was like, okay, all right, cool, you know, I'll just click away. But because I hadn't practiced with the computer, I wasn't as efficient as I could have been with it. I wasn't using keyboard shortcuts. So I didn't know there were keyboard shortcuts until maybe last week, which was a week before my exam. If you press Alt, that can allow some of the keys on the keyboard to actually perform some functions for you. So Alt plus N means next question, Alt plus P is previous question, and Alt plus F is flag the question, and then Alt plus C is calculator. Oh my gosh, when I discovered I could do this, how did I not do this before? Like, what am I doing? So in my exam, I would always have my fingers on Alt, F, and N, and I basically go with my mouse and I would like select a question, and if I wasn't sure I would do like flag and then next, and I would never press next with my mouse, which meant that my cursor was always near the answer section, so I didn't have to like waste time clicking and then coming back and then all of that stuff. Confirmation email and some form of ID. Don't be stupid like me and forget to read like what to bring. What I didn't know is that you have to print the email, the confirmation email, which I didn't do, so I had to go all the way to the library to print it off. Also, make sure you go to the toilet. Oh my gosh, the test is 2 hours long. Go to the toilet. Like, even if you don't need it, just go, because in 2 hours you're gonna need it. The notepad, which is non-erasable, and it's like a laminated sheets, and it was like a few of them, and she gave me 2 marker pens, which she checked worked. So I did ask if I could get another notebook, and she said you can only have one at a time. I didn't end up running out of room, which was good. I think I actually only used 3 sides of the notepad, like the laminated notepad, and so that was fine. I wrote a lot, so I think the notepad is more than enough. Afterwards, you just like raise your hand, and then the person who is watching everyone just tells you that you can leave, and then they tell you to show your ID to the reception, and then the receptionist, like the front receptionist, would give you your results. But yeah, if you haven't taken the test yet, good luck. And if you have, then good luck to you in your medicine application, and I will hopefully see you guys soon.